Okay, we are live. So the 300,000 to $800,000 range is where most founders quietly break. Now, today I'm sitting down with my great friend. I look up to him as a mentor as well. He's helped me a lot throughout the years with business, specifically building systems and AI. And I'm here with Alan Miles, all the way over in the UK, over in England.
Hey.
And Alan is a business growth strategist, founder of Alan Miles Consultancy, and someone who's helped founders break through that messy middle between $300,000 and $800,000 without sacrificing their marriage, health, or freedom. Okay, that's very important. So he's generated over $10 million across ventures, scaled a recruitment company to 1.5 million in its first year, and now works with founders in over 50 countries to build predictable, system-driven businesses. But what I respect most is this. Okay, he builds around marriage and fatherhood first, not just profit. And I find it very interesting because I feel like in today's society and world, it's quite the opposite. People tend to build until they burn out, right? So, Alan, like I said, man, I've respected you for quite some time with who you are as a human being, and not just our NFL football talks, right? We could talk for days about that, especially Alan's a Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm a Washington Redskins, of course, Commanders fan. So him and I, we've always bantered about that. So real quick, Alan, did I get the bio right at least?
Yeah. Yeah, you did a good job there. I appreciate the introduction. I feel like I've got some big shoes to fill now to deliver the value on the podcast. If anyone's still left after hearing I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'm sure half the listener base just switched off immediately.
America's football team, they say, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Oh man. But let me just get into it, Alan. I wanted to ask you this question to start off. You know, you say you help people break through the messy middle,
Mhm.
right? Now, what actually makes that range so dangerous from your perspective?
I think the reason that that particular range is a dangerous spot is because you can get there just by blunt force. So you can be good at sales, you can have a unicorn of a product and get into that range and start to think, do you know what? I've got it covered. I can just keep doing more of what I'm doing. But the reality is there's no underpinnings, there's no foundation in the business. It's just simply been brute force that's got you into that range. And I think that's the one of the reasons this becomes so dangerous is that you get to a place where you now have some form of revenue in a good spot. So if I use my own experience in the online space as an example, I moved to the online space to be able to spend more time with my kids. So I worked
Yeah.
part time. So for me, it was a case of I could do very little lead generation, very little sales, retain my customers, and I was in a good spot. People would look at that from the outside and say, wow, he's got a great business. But the reality, when I took the leap to go back into things from a full time basis, I couldn't just do more of what I did because I went from building a 6-figure business to now building a 7-figure business. Those are two different things. It's like saying you drive a car the same way you ride a bike just because they're both motor vehicles. They're
Right.
completely different vehicles, which mean they require a different skill set to drive forward. They require different principles. Every part about it is different. And I think the messy middle is so dangerous because people end up hearing these confusing messages from a wide range of gurus and influencers of this is what I did to make 9 figures. But their goal is only to make multi 6 figures. Well, they don't need a 9-figure plan to make 6 figures. But the same is true in reverse. If you're trying to make 9 figures and you're following the 4-hour work week, you're not going to get there. You're going to burn yourself out because it's a round peg in a square hole.
I see what you're saying. So what specifically changes at 300,000, would you say?
So I think 300,000 in particular is just a an entry point. And I actually think for a lot of businesses, 300,000 and 800,000, really the only difference is your offer price. So if you had a business that hits 300,000 and you scale that to 800,000, that's like taking an 800,000 business and scaling it up into seven figures. You just have a much lower deal value. That's all it is.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, what would you say? Because I know we're covering the messy middle, but for those that struggle to even get to 300,000, and maybe they're stuck in, Alan, man, I've been stuck in 100 to 200,000. Like, what's the common theme that you notice on why they can't get to that 300,000 mark?
Yeah. So it's simply, most of the time, it's just simply either a bad offer or their client acquisition system isn't dialed in. So typically trying to do too much instead of focusing on just one channel. So for me, we help people across all platforms online. I think LinkedIn is a great starting point for a lot of people. What we're looking to do is we're trying to get very narrow. And the pushback that I see from people who are stuck somewhere between, let's say, 85,000 and 200,000, that kind of range, again, deal value will typically depend on where they sit in it. The biggest thing is they'll say, yeah, but I can help lots of people. And it's like, but that's great. But the reality is you only have so many shots that you can shoot each and every week because of the parameters that the platforms now place on us. Lead generation online in 2026 is very different to 2019, which is also very different to offline lead generation in general. So if you have people who are trying to help everybody, that means you're trying to have lots of different conversations. That means you can't optimize anything, which means you end up most of the time never really having enough meaningful conversations to move the needle consistently. So your sales pattern will typically be up and down, up and down. You'll have a good month and then a zero, maybe a great month and then an okay month. What we're looking to do is we're trying to flatten those peaks and raise the troughs so that we have a predictable line through the middle. Because if you have that predictable engine, that now means we can go and plug in a second or a third system to further grow the business. That the biggest issue at the very beginning for people is their client acquisition system just isn't tight enough. There's too much volatility and not enough consistency.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's one thing I learned from you as well is you got to dial in on your systems, and then you also have to really have that niche, however you say it, right? And I know for the longest time, at least with Simba, like, man, I've worked with so many different fields, from realtors, as you're well aware, to plastic surgeons, to models, to music artists. I mean, the whole online coaches, entrepreneurs. I mean, I could go on for days. Mm-hmm. But when you work with so many, I feel, generalized industries, you're not really known for that one industry. Mm-hmm. And when you have an offer and a website, I feel, even whether it's a funnel on like Go High Level or ClickFunnels, you're talking to the masses. You're not talking to a specific category or niche per se, which then it can confuse the somebody, like if you're going after a plastic surgeon, you might be confusing them because it's like, okay, well, your language isn't speaking to me. You're mm-hmm. speaking more so to plumbers or mm-hmm. contractors. So that's one thing that I learned from you is like, Nate, you have to dial in on your system, and especially with how massive and gigantic AI is right now. It's like if you're not using AI, you're going to fall behind, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think AI is something that the thing I find interesting about AI, maybe this will go off on a slight tangent, but the thing I find interesting is you get lots of people criticizing people for using AI at this point, using the term AI slop. Oh, this was made with AI slop. This is AI slop. You don't know how to use AI. The way in which I see AI in a business is AI is just a tool. It's a new team member that doesn't need a sick day. Like, how you use that team member comes down to how good you are as a leader. But using it, even if it's creating AI slop, is still better than creating human-generated slop, because you're at least then saying to the AI, well, at least try and make this good. Like they may leave things in there that are very clearly AI things, like the little dashes, using certain emojis in certain places, whatever it might be. But the reality is it's still better than, like, call it what it is, like the crap that was being produced before when the human was trying, but the human's no good at marketing, the human's no good at sales, the human doesn't understand social media. So I think that it's, for me, I see a lot of people throw shade at businesses that use AI and don't hide it. To me, I think that it's disingenuous, actually, if you use AI and you just cover it up to make it look like it's all your own work. Like, if you're using AI, be proud of using AI. It's a great tool. Like, yes, you need to become more sophisticated at using it. But if you're just starting, I think you have to accept where you are in the process and own it and know that, well, this produces a better outcome than me doing it potentially if I have no marketing or sales experience. And I think that it's really, like, coming back to your point around really narrowing into the niche. It's about really diving super deep at this point, I think, into that micro niche. And for me, I'm not just looking at things now. If we use, say, LinkedIn as the place, just a conversation in general. If you're looking at a lead, the question isn't just are they a plastic surgeon? The question now is, are they a plastic surgeon who has been in business for 5 years? Is that, if that's who you speak to more often than not? And then it's about understanding, okay, well, what framing does this person bring to the conversation? Are they more direct, or are they more passive? Are they permission based, or are they very analytical? And then it's about understanding, we have to have a conversation with this person on their terms, because they have had hundreds of conversations, or people try and start conversations with them at this point in the DMs. So we have to not just try and be different, because I think that that's overwhelming for a lot of people. How do I create a message that's different? Well, you don't, is the answer. Like, what you do is you meet the person where they're at and you help to disarm them. So if you have somebody who's permission based, you ask permission to do something, even if it feels like I shouldn't need to ask permission. Like, prime example would be, let's say you help plastic surgeons build websites. Hey, Mr. Plastic, and they're permission based. Hey, Mr. Plastic Surgeon, would you mind if I sent you a free video showing you 2 or 3 things of your website specifically that you should change? Who's going to say no to that? Well, right. Some people are. Like, some people are going to say no to it. You'll get 3 categories. You'll get a yes, a no, and a maybe. Like a yes, but don't sell me anything. So we treat, if we're coming back to the core principle here of controlling the variables, well, a yes, but don't sell me something is a polite no. So we have a yes and a no given to us in 2 ways. We say thank you to the no's and wish them a good day. So we focus on the yeses. So we've now controlled a variable, and we're now able to say, well, what's the predictable response? If we now follow a real core basic of under promise, over deliver, I can tell you 2-3 things about your website that will make it perform better. So we deliver on that promise, and then we over deliver, so that, in my opinion, we do what's called fire hosing. At that point, this person who hates a cold DM being sent to them now says thank you to you. Like, thank you for sending me that DM, because that's actually really helpful and it's moved me forward. Now we have an opportunity to shoot a shot. We're in that permission-based space. If you want more help implementing this, why don't we hop on a short 5-10 minute call? Like, in that person's brain, they're like, well, this person has helped me. I still don't trust them. 5-10 minutes, probably worth it given what they've just sent. Now we book a call. That's how we move the sales process forward.
Yeah, because I've done this exact process that Alan's talking about, and it works. It absolutely works, because when they hop on a call, obviously these people know you run a business, but being that you're coming from a helpful perspective and value driven, then all of a sudden the roles kind of change, their guards lower a little bit, and then they start asking, well, Alan or Nate, so tell me a little bit more about what you do. I'd say probably, man, at least from my experience, 75% of the time, these individuals ask, well, what do you do? Like, could you send me some information? And then the other 25%, they're just there to listen, and they're just there to kind of hear you out, which is fine, because it went from a completely ice cold Mr. Freeze type of lead to all of a sudden now they're warm, getting a little
Mm-hmm.
hot, right? Like Ghost Rider. And then it's it's interesting because then deals could potentially come from that, depending on what it is you're offering, whether it's a website, what you said to plastic surgeons, SEO, AI type of service, online coaching, maybe you're in the fitness industry. But it's wild how that really does work. Would you say having a pretty well established foundation for your brand, is that helpful for conversions?
So it's an interesting question. So in my honest opinion, no. I think if you are just starting, if you are in that 300 or even zero, if you're at 0 to 300,000, that first few 100,000, I personally, bearing in mind, like my angle is always a sales angle with people to understand we need to breathe life into a business. Life
Right.
comes from sales. Like, does marketing and branding have a place? Obviously, it does at some point in time. But does it require us to spend more than 5 minutes making a logo so it makes us feel happy? No. Because the reality is your brand integrity sits in the quality of the conversation you can have with that person. If I go and knock on 500 doors, if I need to go make some money today and I can tell people I can wash their cars, they don't care about my branding, whether I've got this t-shirt on or a t-shirt that says Alan's Super Clean. Like, I might look a little bit better if I'm wearing a t-shirt that says Alan's Super Clean and it's got a blue body and black arms, and I look a bit more like I run a car cleaning company. They might say, oh, he's a bit more established. But if I knock on that door, the person answers and I say, hey, Nate, today we're doing a great deal. You've got 2 cars on the drive. We can get both done inside and out. And it will cost you $30. Here's some pictures of some previous work we've done. And they can see high quality work. And they can say, well, what products do you use? Well, we only use the best products available. It's this product, and this product. We provide our own water. We won't trouble you at all. We just need your permission to obviously clean your cars and obviously collect payment. At that point, that's your brand right there. Like, you're trading at this beginning point on your ability to convey your knowledge, your passion, and the results that you can work for people. You have to always think, like, what's your unique differentiator in the minute, in that moment? If you're a brand new business, the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is try and compete with a big brand by creating a brand. You want to be the hungry person who's just starting, who will work harder than anybody to help you get results. And as you get time served, and as you get more and more customers, and as you get more social proof, that's when it becomes relevant to start building more of that brand picture and story. Because the reality is, if I'm running a car wash, I'm knocking on your door, they don't care about my origin story. They don't care about how life was hard and I learned to clean cars to feed my son. They don't care. But it's only as you get through that value ladder that you become an aspirational person, that someone says, what's this person's journey? Like, oh, I align with this person. Now we've got brand affinity. But at the very beginning, it's just simply about, can you do a job that I want done better than somebody else? What's your differentiator? That's the bit for me.
That's the bit. Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I know I'm kind of going off the schedule here a little bit. Um, would you say that's the same though for, because I knew you used that as a car wash example. I feel like that's more of an in-person business. Would you say for an online business, do do you need a website? Do you need to have a bunch of content posted to get business? Does that kind of differentiate it all?
So yeah, like I think it still holds true for an online business. I think you have to play the game, like you have to dress the shop window. If let's use just sticking with LinkedIn as the example, if you are messaging out from a LinkedIn account that has zero content on it, well, what does that trigger in the other person? Well, that triggers, this is probably a scam. This is not a legitimate person. They're not following normal behavior. However, if you have a couple of posts and your page is dressed like a shop window should be, that's it. I don't think you need to become a content king. Now, I've helped people go viral with content. I've gone viral with content on platforms like TikTok. I don't like making content particularly. it's part of the game. Like, this space is not made for content, in my opinion. But it's about understanding that if I look at the success of my business over the years, what role has content played in it? I can tell you very little. Like,
Interesting.
especially when I look at where most of my leads and sales come from, they don't come from the viral video that I posted. And when I look inside my clients' businesses, it's the same. Like, yes, it creates awareness, but it's about looking at that overall plan. It comes back to the plan. What's the plan? If your plan is world domination, you're going to need to go viral or spend a lot of money on content, on ads, etc., to get the awareness needed, to get the exposure. So look at somebody like Kim Kardashian or The Rock. They have monstrous social brands. Now they're worth billions of dollars. But when you're sat there and you're like, I just want to work for myself and I want to be able to take home $250,000 a year in my back pocket as my income, well, you don't need that. Like,
Right.
if anything, making content nonstop takes you away from the core goal here, which is getting customers, because content is a really long, slow game for most people at this point, unless you are very gifted and that just happens to be your skill set. For most people, it's far easier to reach out to one individual who's fits a criteria and have a value-based conversation to demonstrate capability and bring them in as a customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you say on the content side of things that every single business owner, no matter what business you're in, should be making content? And if so, how often should people make content? Like, because something I hear all the time, Alan, is like, oh man, I don't want to get in front of the camera, or I'm just shy, I'm introverted, or I know I need to do it. You got all these real estate agents out there, they post all these photos of homes, and it's what everybody and their brother, sister, and cousin does. So how often should you post content? And most importantly, like, should everybody be posting content?
So I think there's a place for content. I think that everyone should be posting some form of content somewhere. And I think that where we're at now, obviously, video performs well. So to me, it comes back to this place of good, better, best. And everyone's industry is going to be slightly different. Like, and I think that it's an important thing to look at. Okay, well, if we're using realtors as the example or lawn care as an example, like, you see lots of great examples of video content for those industries. So people showing massive homes and doing house tours. I see house tours of Texas all the time. I don't live in Texas. And I'm like, wow, this is a really great video. I'll watch the video. I'll like the video. I'll show my wife. I'll be like, look at this house. This house is 3 times the size of our house in the UK, and it costs half as much. Like, but the reality is, am I a buyer? I am not a buyer. Like, I'm not buying a house in Texas anytime soon, even though I love the Cowboys. Like, it just isn't happening. So my view is completely irrelevant. Same with lawn care. Like, there's a couple of, like, what's it, SB Mowing. He posts videos all the time. He'll go knock on someone's door and he'll do their lawn for free because it's in a rundown state. His videos are very interesting to watch. They're very consumable. Like, there's lots of great things in those videos that make them very watchable. But does it bring him more business? Maybe, but he's been making videos, and people like the realtors, they've been making videos nonstop, constantly. Do I really think that many realtors are selling homes from those videos? No. Like, they may get some inquiries, but they get exposure. So I think that if you don't like making video, and at this point in time, if you're not going to be able to make some kind of a compelling video, you need to find a medium that works for you. Maybe that's going to be the written form. There's blog posts, there's traditional written posts. You could do carousels, you can do graphics, you can do a podcast, you could just do an audio only podcast. You just need to find what works for you. And it's about understanding, like, what's the goal here? And I think that that's the bigger question. Like, yes, content plays a role without a doubt. But the reality here is, what's your goal? What type of business are you trying to build? Because a posting cadence Well, if content isn't going to be driving the engine of the business, you can post as infrequently as you like. I think consistency is important with that cadence. But if you're trying to build a bigger business, well, it makes sense that you're going to need to lean into some uncomfortable areas. And if you're not going to be spending tens or hundreds of thousands on paid ads straight away, you are going to have to commit to the content game, and you are going to have to grind out 3, 4, 5 posts a day and post multi-platform. And that's going to not be very enjoyable or fun for a lot of people, but that's part of building a much bigger business. So it's about, I think, and this comes back to that plan. Like, why do I need to post 5 times a day if I only want to make $250,000 a year? Well, you don't. You don't even have to post if you don't want. Post a couple so that you've got something there. Then just don't post if you're good at doing lead generation and sales. But you need to know that you're not building anything over the longer term. If you stop lead generation, you shut off the pipeline completely. So it's about knowing kind of like, I don't know if that really directly answers the question, because I think it becomes much more situation specific rather than there being this blanket rule. My name's Alex Hermosi. I post 200 times a day. Well, do I need to do that? Only if you want what he's got. And he spends tens of thousands on script writers, editors. Like, he doesn't sit there with his phone on Instagram, like posting his own reels.
Right. So would you say, and I totally agree with everything you're saying, would you say, let's say you want to make $50K a month, even $30K a month, between 30 to 50K a month. How many times should you be posting a day? Or maybe not just a day, throughout the week? And should you be posting on every single platform, or just the ones that you are feeling more passionate about from your experience?
So I would say it depends what the offer value size is. That would be the first thing. My thought would be, I would rather the person post 2 or 3 times a week, so that they have some presence across all platforms. So I would optimize it for your main platform. So if your main platform is Instagram, optimize everything for Instagram, and then just redistribute as quickly as you can everywhere else. So you've made the piece of content, put it everywhere so that you're maximizing what you can see and the reach you can get. At that point, I would actually rather the person focus on straight cold lead generation, get a couple of deals in the bank, take 10% of every one of those deals, scrape it to one side, and start a paid ads campaign as quickly as humanly possible. I think for 90%, 99% of businesses maybe at this point, it's far easier to find budget for paid ads than it is to make it with organic content. I think organic content then serves a really important purpose, which is market research. What do people resonate with that I can then translate into my paid media as I start and launch those campaigns? That's where I think organic content really sits. The key thing would be post as often as you can consistently. If that's once a day, it's once a day. If it's 3 times a day, do it 3 times a day. If you love doing it, do it. But if you struggle to even do once a day, just set the intention of 2 to 3 times per week with a clear understanding. I'm posting content to understand what makes this market tick so that I can take those core components and I can put that into my paid media once I've got the budget to move that forward. And you get to a point, once your paid media is working, that your organic content, it will absolutely benefit the paid ads to have organic content, but it then becomes not as much of a thing. Like if you really are like, do you know what? I just want to run my business. I don't want to make organic content anymore. At that point, you can stop. You've got paid ads, you've got cold outreach. Those are your 2 engines. And those are the engines that I use in my business.
But Alan, I'm not good with paid ads. It's just not my strength. You're talking about all these paid ads and running these campaigns. I've done it before. I've burned thousands of dollars. My conversion ratio has been just absolutely just not the best. How the heck do I run ads if I'm not even good at it?
Well, the tough love would be learn. Or secondly, hire somebody to do it for you. I think the key thing here is coming back to a really interesting place. Like I hear a lot of people say stuff like this. Oh, I'm not very good at sales. I'm not very good at paid ads. I don't know what to do. Meta make it really difficult. Like, boo hoo. Like, you're running a business. Like, this is a difficult thing. Like, there was a point in time you didn't know how to file your taxes, and you either learnt or you got an accountant. Like,
Right.
it's no different with this part of the business. It's about understanding. Like, so for me, like, we run our own ads in house because I don't really trust a lot of ad agencies out there. They're happy to spend my money. Will they actually get me results? I don't know. So I wanted to learn how to do it so that we could manage it in house because I'd seen some bad experiences. I'm sure there's some great ad agencies out there, but I wanted to learn in house to be able to run it. And I didn't know how to do them either. Like, and I had to learn and I had to burn a bit of money. The difference here is that I think when you see people burning thousands of dollars, my question is why? Like, do you have clear KPIs that you're working towards? Are you using the right mechanism, first of all? And I think for a lot of people, they spend a lot of time in their business doing a little bit of this and then a little bit of that, and they heard somebody say that, so I should probably try this. My question to everyone is always, why? Like, why are you doing that? And they go,
Right.
I don't know, I just thought that's what I should do. Based on what? Like, there's no data here. Why are we doing this? Like, there needs to be structure behind everything we do. So I'm not spending $1 of my money if I don't know what I'm expected to get for that dollar. So personally, I think in the online space, I don't particularly like book a call funnels. I think that they are risky funnels to run unless you have a lot of money to spend, because you are essentially you're going to need to spend at least a couple of $1,000s in the hope that you book a call and then in the hope that you can close that call. So unless you are an absolute sales ace, you're already playing against the odds. It's like walking into a casino called Meta and chucking some cash at it and hoping that you win. So for me, I like low ticket ads. I like a self-liquidating offer. So a lot of people say, well, I can't pay my bills selling low ticket products. Neither can I. Like, and I don't use them like that. But I
Yeah.
use it to understand that I'm selling a low ticket product to essentially collect leads for free. So the sales that I will receive will pay for the cost of those leads. So we now generate 100 to 300 leads per week that either cost me nothing or I've made money on to acquire. So now it's a case of understanding I can take those leads and I can work those leads to book sales calls, to upgrade them, to do a whole range of things. And I'm already at break even or above before I've even done anything with those leads. Right? That to me feels like a much safer bet. But even then, there's specific budget constraints. There's certain criteria where we turn the ads off if they hit certain markers. You have to know the game you're playing, because otherwise you'll lose every time. And I think that's the big problem a lot of business owners face, is they're trying to play games that they don't understand the rules of, and then they get upset when they lose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't play football properly or uh, basketball, soccer if you don't know the rules, right? I mean, you're going to
Exactly.
get penalized or pass interference. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you can't run a route and have your hands all over the receiver
Yeah.
and not expect a 15-yard penalty or the pass interference where it was the spot of the ball. So, what would you say is the biggest time wasting activity for business owners that actually think they're being productive with this activity?
That's an interesting question. So I think content falls into that bucket for a lot of business owners,
Yeah.
and that their content creation process, that I think is a big time sink. Um, and then beyond that, I actually think for a lot of people, product development is, and that's probably quite an unpopular one, but when it comes, let's use the low tickets as an example, the amount of time I see people putting into a low dollar product that's going to cost $9 or $19, and they don't even know if it's going to sell. And they spend a month building something for $10 and then nobody buys it. Well, let's look at the rules. The rules are 3 out of every 10 are going to be successful. So that means you have a 70% chance the product that you've just spent a month making is going in the trash in the first 72 hours. What on earth are you spending a month building this product for? Like
Insane.
those types of areas are where I see people waste a lot of time. And the whole content component of not having a clear framework to just build their content around, that would be the other side of it.
Okay. That makes sense. Let's kind of pivot a little bit here. I'm just having so many questions come up in my mind whenever you're talking, Alan. But let's go to your core belief, right? So you wrote, "You are not the result of your situation. You can change anything you want at any moment." So that's a strong belief to have. Where exactly did that come from within your journey?
So for me, that really came from, I think, my upbringing more than anything. So for those that don't know, like, I lost my dad when I was just before I turned 5, died in a motorbike accident. My mum took her own life in my mid-20s, and my brother died of a heart attack the following year, literally 12 months after. So there's a lot of people who look at that and go, wow, you've been through a lot, poor you, that must be really difficult, et cetera, et cetera. And there's been moments where I've sat there and thought, well, that's not very good, is it? It sucks that those things happen.
Right.
But we all deal the cards that we're dealt. And we either make good decisions or bad decisions. There's always a reason or an excuse. And I think that for me, I was fortunate, I suppose, to look at it and say, I'm going to prove the world wrong. I'm just going to go and create what I want from the world, instead of sitting there and wallowing in the poor me and then justifying why I have turned to drugs or alcohol or all these other vices that pull people in. Now, don't get me wrong, like, I had my own vices at points. For me, food was a massive vice. Like, I got up to nearly 300 pounds. I'm 5'10" on a good day. So, like, I was big, and food very much was my crutch. There was nothing better than a box of donuts to give me a sugar hug and then instant regret afterwards.
Right.
And it was, for me, it was one of those things that, as I started to lose the people that I loved, particularly like my mum and my brother within quite a short space of time, I was like, I have to take a lesson from these. Like, why did my mum take her own life? Like, what's the lesson that needs to be learned from that? Why did my brother die how he died? What was he doing? And he died at a work event. Like, he was the typical older brother that you kind of look at, and that typical worker who, he's carved the great career. He's the leader in the family, the first to earn 6 figures. He's got the big house, the beautiful wife, the 2 children, the 2 great cars on the drive, living the dream, traveling the world with work. And bang, the universe just wipes him off. Just like that, done. And for me, I was like, well, that he's done everything right, hasn't he? And he was doing everything for his family. Like, I think, like a lot of men do, they want to provide for their family. They want to show their son how to attack the world and like move it forward. And for me, that was a really big moment. I had my recruitment agency at that point. We were growing really well, and we were doing some good things. And I was doing it for the same reason. Like, I was trying to build that business so that I could provide for my family. At that point, I was like, I have to learn from his lesson, because otherwise my kids are going to grow up without a dad. I grew up without a dad. Yeah. Now his kids are growing up without a dad. And my dad was on his way to work to do an overtime shift. He wasn't a trailblazer, like setting the world on fire. He was a postman. And he was going to the sorting office to do an extra night shift as a supervisor because somebody had phoned in sick and we needed the extra money, from my understanding. So it was a case of, it was an honorable reason for him to be on his motorbike that night. He wasn't racing, he wasn't doing anything stupid, and he was wiped off the face of the earth. So for me, like, I sit here and I'm like, okay, well, I'm the last one standing. I'm the last man in my family left, like, other than my children now, my sons. And it's a case of, for me, it's a case of saying, well, why am I here? Like, what do I want to leave here, and what am I trying to create? And how do I move that forward whilst also remembering those lessons that these situations have allowed me to learn. Like, it's a blessing in many ways that, like, without going too deeply into it, obviously losing your dad at a young age, I went to bed that night, woke up the next morning to my mum telling me that daddy's in heaven now. And I was like, what? And I lived in denial for probably 5 years. I expected him to walk through the door. And there was a moment where that denial really came to a head. I was at a local park and there was a man who looked just like my dad with another little boy. And I was like, that's my dad. He's going to come over and see me in a minute. And even now, like, it still hits me in here a little bit. Like, and I was sat on the seesaw, or I don't know if, do you call it a seesaw, like a wooden plank that goes up and down, like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was sat on the seesaw on my own, and I was looking across, and I was like, he's going to come over, he's going to come over. And then he took that boy's hand, and he walked out of the park. And I don't know why that hit me so hard, because it looked just like my dad, and I was like, he isn't coming back. Like, he is actually dead. And like, I growing up as a child, like, it was just then me and my mum a lot of the time. So for me, like, I would cry myself to sleep a lot of the time. She would put on like an audio book for me because she was going through a tough time. I later learned, like, she was going through like drug dependency, all these kind of things. And she wanted to just provide some kind of stable life for me. She worked incredibly hard. Like, I never went without anything, but I was sad. Like, I would go to bed at night and be scared I was going to wake up tomorrow and my mum would be dead. And it all the way up into my mid-20s, for me, it was a case of my worst nightmare would be losing my mum. Like, she became the first person I would contact when anything good happened. I would speak to her every day. Absolutely a mummy's boy. Like, but me and my mum had a very good relationship. So when she did actually take her own life, it literally just took the legs out from me. I literally collapsed in my apartment where I was, and my partner at the time took our 2 children out, and I just sobbed. Like, I didn't even know what to do. I sat in a chair, and then the rest of that day, I just stared at the wall. I literally can't even remember the day. And for me, like, when you have these moments where your worst fears come true, when you get to a place in business and in life, I think at certain points, you then know you've survived that, maybe only by the skin of your teeth, but you survived it. Now you can go and, now you're dangerous. Like, now you can go and accomplish anything you want. Like, money is great, but money's not everything. It's about understanding, like, what are your drivers? And I think for me, there was a really important moment in life where I sat there and really took stock of what's important to me, not what do I think I should be. Like, not being Alan the great dad, or Alan the perfect husband, or Alan the great guy. Who am I? Like, what do I really want? Not what's the world programmed me to tell me that I want, but actually, who am I? And I went through a process every day, answering a set group of questions for 30 days, answering them as quickly as I could every day. And I noticed after a couple of weeks, the pre-programmed answers stopped coming out. And all of a sudden, I started to get to a place where I started to learn what I wanted. And that was one of the reasons for me why I went from building the business part-time and spending time with my kids. See, I love my kids, and of course I want to spend time with them, but I want to build a business. And I became acutely aware that actually me choosing to build a business was for me. It's not to provide for them, because I can provide for them working part-time. It's because I have a bit of an ego and I want to build a big business. That's a me thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's about being able to understand who you are and then find these positive reasons that are positive to you. Like, I think that the sooner we can get to a place as people where we accept other people's opinions are pretty much irrelevant. Like, you have to do what lights you up, because otherwise you're going to get to the end of your life, which could be tomorrow, and say, I wish I did something else.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I appreciate you getting deep there with me, Alan. That means a lot. I definitely had some goosebumps, felt some emotions coming up over here. But to what you just said, listen, we're all going to die, to have it blunt. You know, Alan's lost many people, especially those closest to him in his life. And a lot of individuals would go to drugs, would go to drinking, boozing. committing suicide to their own selves. And especially when you have, you know, your core family members taken away from you, that's rough and that's tough. But you did the opposite, which, yeah, I mean, you probably your biggest crutch and weakness was the food,
Yeah.
which is how you got up to 300 pounds. That was tough. Probably
Mhm.
pounded down the donuts, the Krispy Kremes, and things like that. Which you identified that though, and realized, well, this isn't the life that I want.
Mhm.
And you had kids at the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So at my absolute biggest, I had two children. So my eldest, who at that point was around a year, and I had a newborn baby. So there's 9 months
Wow.
between my oldest two. So I bought so much Chinese takeaway that year that they gave me a Christmas present.
Oh my gosh, what was the Christmas present?
It was a box of chocolates.
A box of chocolates.
So, and even like that's the greatest example of brand affinity. I don't because of some allergies I have now. Like I don't eat Chinese food anymore, but even now, I would always recommend that Chinese over any other. And I would always tell that story that I bought so much that they gave me a Christmas present. At least they recognized I was a valuable customer. Like for me, I think that like the food component was something that was conditioned into me. Like after my dad died, my mum showed me love. She was a feeder. Like she showed me love through food. As a little boy, every weekend in the UK, it's traditional to have a roast dinner. So like a cooked chicken or beef or pork with roast potatoes, etc. The whole thing, and then a dessert like apple crumble or apple pie or something like that. She would make that all just for me, like a whole chicken, and be like, "Here you go, little Alan. Here you go. It's a big roast dinner for you," because
Right.
she didn't know how to process her own grief, so she fed me, and I was a bit chubby as a kid, but not massive. I played a lot of sport, so I was okay. But
Yeah.
as an adult, it got worse and worse and worse until you just get to that tipping point where you go. And I remember like when it really all started to come to a head. I went to bend over to tie my shoelaces up, and it winded me to a degree. And it reminded me of when the mother of my two eldest kids had said when she was heavily pregnant, "Oh, I can't bend over to put my shoes on." And I was like, I'm there. Like,
Wow.
I'm not going to be around to see my kids. So, like, I absolutely had very low self worth at that point, and my job was making money for them and her, and I lost weight for them. There was a really funny moment when I started doing that writing everything out,
Right.
where I felt like you lose your way a little bit because when you have low self worth, you do everything for everyone else. But there comes a moment when you make that change and you start to do things for you, and you have to find that new pathway of actually having self worth for you. I'm making money for me. I'm getting in shape for me. Like that's a weird place. People can logically understand. Oh well, yeah, of course I do it for me. Why would I do it for anyone else? But the reality is, most people who have been systemically overweight or systemically dependent on anything other than living this like healthy life, like they are always doing it for somebody else because they don't have the self worth to do it for themselves at the beginning. They're doing it because they want to see their kids grow up. They don't want to go back to rehab. That because they see how much it upsets somebody else. And it's a really interesting journey, that pathway, because I think that bringing it back to business, when we bring too much emotion into our business and we attach our self-worth to the business, it becomes a really slippery slope. And this is something you see a lot in those early stage businesses struggling to get past that 300K mark. Is there's a lot of your identity is tied to the business, so all of your trauma is also tied to the business, and you start sabotaging yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can see that wholeheartedly. I think you look at men that go through breakups, well, they start hitting the gym,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, unless you're a simp or somebody and you're like, oh man, I got broken up with by Sally that I've dated for a few years and now my world's going to end. It's like, bro, go to the gym.
Yeah.
Go prove Sally wrong if she
Mm-hmm.
broke up with you, And then with women, when when they get broken up with and they want to like glow up, they want to glow themselves up, maybe hitting the gym, but a lot of times it comes, I feel like, from from an outwardly appearance, like doing makeup, getting your nails done, pedicure, manicures, and all those different types of things.
Mhm.
But you're right. I feel like humans and just us as individuals, we tend to be motivated to do things not always of what's internally within us, but externally for that validation, which I think is very interesting because if you look at this whole entire world and you look at it from the space and the galaxies, we are so small, like
Mhm.
so small. And to think that opinions, or if somebody doesn't like you, or if something such as losing both of your parents and those that were closest to you, right? And a brother. And it's, I feel like you kind of took on that mentality where, okay, well, life still goes on. I'm going to see
Mhm.
them later in another lifetime. I'm going to see them in heaven, or whatever it is
Mhm.
somebody's belief system is. And you didn't let that stop you. Think about all the people that have grief for not just a year, but I'm
Mhm.
talking decades on end. And I think you're a great example of, man, Alan Miles pretty much lost it all. But here he is. He's still standing. He has a incredible wife. He has 5 kids.
Yep.
5 kids. So what? I think that leads to the question: you have such an incredible family, but you also run a business. How do you balance all of that? Is there such thing as balance, as being a husband and as well as a father? Do you struggle with that at all?
Yeah, it's good. It's an interesting question. I think that balance, for me, for a long time, I always assumed balance meant equilibrium. Like everything is equal. Like, and balance is not, in my opinion, at this point. I don't believe to have true balance, everything is equal. I think you have to be able to make a decision, and these decisions can change. So it becomes seasonal to a degree, like not like autumn, winter, but as in like just different parts of your life as you go through. And you start to understand that these things are going to ebb and flow. But you absolutely have to start by prioritizing what is the most important thing to you. So I think a big mistake a lot of business owners make is they prioritize their business first. But if their business shut down tomorrow, they'd be sad and probably struggle for money for a while, but they'd go get a job or they'd open another business. If their wife or husband died tomorrow, their life might be over. If their kids died tomorrow, their life might be over. They might not be able to come back from that. So it's about saying, okay, well, seems to me like something's more important to you than your business. So why are you giving everything to the business, and the things that are actually important to you, you just give the scraps? Like that seems a bit backwards. And you can justify it by saying, oh, well, it's only for today because in a couple of years, if I do it now, then they'll have that, blah, blah. Load of rubbish. Like it's just an excuse to justify a poor decision. So for me, I sit there and I say, okay, what's the number one priority to me? It's my marriage. And I think that for me, I look at it and I sometimes get a bit of grief about this that I don't say the children. Like, my kids are going to grow up and leave home. And if I
Yeah.
haven't prioritized my marriage, when my kids leave, my marriage ends. And you see it over and over and over again. So I am a marriage first household. The kids know that very much. Doesn't mean I love the kids any less. It's a completely different type of love. But the number one priority in my life every morning is to make sure that my wife is happy and she's got what she needs. So I start my day. The minute I get out of bed, the first thing I do is I make her a cup of tea. She has a special cup that it goes in that stays hot until she gets up because she isn't getting up early. She'll get up when she needs to get up. She needs to sleep. I like to get up early. I make her a cup of tea and then I go to the gym. So for me, the number one priority in my life is my wife from a wife and kids perspective. But then for me to be able to be the best husband I can be, I need to prioritize me. So I take myself to the gym fairly early in the morning because I want peace and quiet. I don't want my phone blowing up with work. I don't want like the kids needing stuff. I don't want to feel rushed and hassled to do stuff. I want to be able to put my headphones in, turn the noise cancellation on, and just lock into me for a little bit. And that might be lifting weights. That might just be walking on a treadmill. And some days it might be just going and sitting in the car down at the beach, listening to a podcast, some meditation, doing some breath work. You don't always have to like push your body to this point of exhaustion. It's about saying like life is by design. So what am I trying to achieve? Like, yes, I want to be healthy so I can live a long period of time. And I want to look decent enough. I want to look like a guy who lifts weights, but also still likes pizza. So like that, like it's a case of finding that right middle, but then it's about saying, okay, but I need to be able to function. I'm about to go to work. So there's no point showing up to work on a cut, being unable to think properly on a call because you've got brain fog and a banging headache. You have to fuel yourself for that success. And then you structure your day as you go. For me, it's about reviewing as you go through those moments. So whether that's like Ed Milet says, and breaking your day down into 3 so you can have a super productive day. I think for most people that works in short bursts. I think it's too much most of the time, in my opinion. Like trying to have 3 days in one every day forever is, I think it leads to burnout. But having those review points are important across each part of your life. So I listen to my gut quite a lot. If I feel like I should be doing more with my kids, I review everything. Like, what am I doing? Like, have I given them all time? Have they all had me time? So my youngest is obviously, as kids age, they want less of you. So that window is finite. My youngest is 8. I'm one of the coaches of his football or soccer team. We play Xbox together. I lay with him every night when he goes to bed, and we'll make up jokes, or we'll tell stories, or we'll make up raps, whatever it might be. It's not about the volume of time. It's about those key moments that make him know I'm there for him, because he'll message me in the day and have a question for me. And I will stop what I'm doing to answer his question, because he's a priority to me. As much as I love my clients, unless I'm in a meeting with a client, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to answer my son, because he's a priority to me. Same as if my wife messages me, I'm going to message her pretty quickly back, because for me, when my phone goes off, we've been married for 9 years on Wednesday. So nearly 9 years. And my face still lights up when she texts me, like, because I've prioritized our marriage. Like that whole Tony Robbins thing of, and I literally had this conversation with her the other day. I said, like, I've got a lot to thank Tony Robbins for. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, without me like watching his stuff and going through his things and reading his books and understanding that like what you focus on is what comes to like fruition, our relationship wouldn't be what it is. Like, I prioritize everything. You get to that point, like Tony Robbins always talks about, like, oh, when they first start brushing their teeth, they're like, oh, wow, oh, you got some toothpaste there. And then 9 years later, it's like, oh my God, can you please just wipe your mouth, you like filthy animal? Like, for me, it's never got to that point. Everyone was like, oh, it's a honeymoon phase, it will pass. Then we get to 2 or 3 years. Oh, and they can't use the, well, when you have kids, because we already had kids at that point. So it was like, oh, well, that's just a bit weird. Now we're 9 years deep and no one really understands why we have the relationship that we have. And we don't have a normal relationship. In my opinion, in this day and age, having a normal anything basically means you have a terrible whatever it is. Like normal is a code word to justify poor. Like, I have a normal income, I have normal health, I have normal marriage, I have a bad marriage, I have no money, and I'm in bad condition. Like, that's harsh, but it's true. Like, if you earn the normal average salary in most countries, you're not very well off. You're maybe doing okay at best. In the UK, it's 39,000 a year. You can't live on 39,000 a year in the UK.
Not at all.
Like, if you have normal health, well, you're going to be pre-exposed to diabetes. You're probably going to be obese at some level. You probably can't even run a mile, and you definitely don't go to the gym more than once a week. That's not a good marker for long-term health. If you have a normal marriage, you don't like spending time with each other, you can constantly complain about how your partner is an idiot and how you just need some time away from them, you don't have sex very often, that doesn't sound very good. I don't want anything normal. So it's about creating that environment where you prioritize what's important to you and create it by design. What do you want it to look like? And then one step at a time, make that come to life.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very important for founders and just business owners to hear, because it is a struggle for a lot, where their significant other might not always understand the grind or the hustle. But maybe if you look at it from the perspective of, well, am I really being as present as what Alan is with his family? Because I'll tell you right now, Alan probably has a schedule to his days on how to make sure he disperses his time accordingly, working out, making that first cup of tea in the morning for his wife. And that is an act of service, love language wise. Mm-hmm. But that's also something that he identified and realized, well, my wife loves when I do that. And if I'm doing that the first thing in the morning, happy wife, happy life is what they say, that saying. And I think that's very important to do, right? I mean, I'm coming up on 1 year of being married on April 2nd, mm-hmm. and you almost got a decade, Alan. So that's incredible. I mean, I feel like nowadays it's very uncommon for people to get to a decade. Mm-hmm. You got the D word, getting past divorce is so common nowadays, but people aren't willing to do the actual work that it takes to be married. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we could talk all day on that for sure, but I think that was a really great response that I think the audience needed to hear. I know we are cutting it close for time. I did want to transition quick on a little game that I like to have on the Nate Peterman Show. I call it overrated or underrated. Okay, so I'm going to give you one word. I got about 5 to 10 of these suckers written out. And you're going to say if it's overrated or if it's underrated. Just super quick. So number 1 is hustle culture.
Overrated.
Work-life balance.
Overrated. But just to say in context, based on that normal definition of that complete balance of work life, everything is equal. I do a 9 to 5 and then clock off and go see my kids. I think you can do it your own way.
Okay. AI tools.
Underrated, definitely.
Personal branding.
Overrated.
Delegation.
Underrated.
Masterminds.
I think probably in 2026, most of them are overrated at this point.
Morning routines.
Underrated.
High ticket coaching.
It's a difficult one, but I'll say underrated.
Okay. Now, I got 2 more things for you, Alan, before we wrap this up. So this is going to go back to your 15-year-old self. It's kind of funny, but so if your 15-year-old self saw you today at 15, saw Alan Miles for who he is today, where he's at in life, what would he misunderstand about success?
So I think he would misunderstand how hard work doesn't translate to financial success. I think that is one of the most misunderstood components by a lot of people, but me in particular. I set off to the working world at 16. At 15, I was ready to go. And I believed I was going to become rich by working hard. And all I did was learn at a very young age how to create a burnout cycle. Because I would work myself to absolute exhaustion. and think that that should be it's almost like a badge of honor that hard work. I get up early. I would get to work sometimes 2 hours early and work for free because I thought that that would get me where I wanted to be. And it will get you a promotion. It will get you moving up that that low level growth, but that's linear growth. Most people who are trying to achieve something, and me in particular at 15, I wanted to achieve something big. You need to learn the power of compounded growth, and you need to learn delegation, and you need to learn that you need leverage more than anything else.
Yeah. What would you warn yourself about at 15? Like, hey, after all these years of experience, just watch out for this one thing. What would you warn yourself about? Besides donuts, you know?
Yeah, besides donuts. What would I warn myself about? Probably, I mean, there's a few things, but probably falling in love too soon. Like, all I wanted was to be a good person, to achieve something great, and have a family and get married. Even at 16, I was like, I'm going to be a dad, and I'm going to be a young dad, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to right all the wrongs in my own life by just giving it to somebody else. Like, I think that if you could block some of that out and just focus first of all in building that solid base of knowing who you are and being able to generate money at a much higher level, then I think those other things come at a slightly later point.
Yeah, I like that. One last deep question here. If everything disappeared tomorrow, no brand, no network, no nothing, you ain't got nothing, what would you do in the first 30 days?
I've still got my knowledge though, yeah?
Still got your knowledge, yep.
Okay. Very simply, I would go and open up a LinkedIn account, and I would start messaging people to generate some revenue, and I would rebuild this business within 90 days.
Solid answer. Yeah. So let me tell y'all listening, man, if you ain't taking LinkedIn serious, I hope Alan could give you some insight on why you should. And I can also attest to that as well, because he got me pretty game on that, and I've listened to everything that he said. So I would be checking Alan out if I were you. Alan, where can people connect with you at? You have a podcast. What are some of your socials?
Yeah, so you can listen to my podcast, The Alan Miles Show. We've just actually restarted our fourth season, I think, after a couple-year hiatus. So you can check me out there. You can find me on all social medias. Generally, if you just put in my name, ALLAN, and then Miles, like the distance, I'll come up on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me wherever is the best platform for you. Drop me a DM. And it'd be great to have a conversation.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I'll plug all of this in the bio for those of you who are watching and listening, so you can check Alan out, listen to his podcast. Alan, I mean, obviously he's crushing it, as you guys can tell from this interview. And if you check him out on social media as well as his website, he's doing it right. And I think that's the big thing with what I respect about him. He's not about hype. He doesn't give two rats hoot about making content, but he does it anyways. And that's why he got to where he's at. So, Alan, I appreciate you being on the show. And yeah, it was a great one.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Nate. It's been great being here.